Welcome to Classic Rock and Country Music Facts and Trivia. Appreciate you being here. If you have not yet, please subscribe. Please share these out with your friends. Today's video is on how when the IRS went after Willie Nelson and what his fans and friends did for him. It's kind of an amazing story. Let's take a look. One thing you definitely do not mess with is you do not mess with Willie Nelson. Of course, that's what the IRS tried to do back in the early 90s when they went after the country music legend for what they claimed was $16.7 million in unpaid tax bills that he owed to Uncle Sam. Trouble started for Willie all the way back in the early 80s when the IRS claimed that he owed $6 million for money that was hidden in tax shelters set up by his accountant. After they did some digging, the government also claimed he owed an additional $10 million in penalties and unpaid taxes going all the way back to the 70s. Willie and his team tried to work with the IRS and challenge the tax bill, but with no success. So in August of '90, the IRS showed up at Willie's door, which is pretty much the last thing anybody wants. Federal agents seized Willie's property in 6 different states, including his houses and his land, his master tapes, his recording and touring equipment, his gold records, and even his clothes. But there was one thing the IRS didn't get their hands on, and that was his iconic and beloved guitar Trigger. It's because Willie suspected the IRS was eventually going to come a-knocking and gave Trigger to daughter Lina to take to Maui for safekeeping. The rest of his possessions, though, went up for auction, and the Saving Country Music reports it didn't go well. The IRS tried to auction off a 44-acre ranch in San Marcos, Texas, that he bought from the doctor who delivered him as a baby. Nobody'd buy it. After 2 failed auctions, the property was finally bought for the minimum bid of $203,840. And the lucky buyer? A farmers lobbying group who Willie had previously helped through the Farm Aid benefit concert, who bought the house so they could sell it back to Willie. Another property up for auction was the Pedernales Country Club, which also housed Willie's studio, where he had done much of his recording in the 80s, including Poncho and Lefty album with Merle Haggard. The IRS did manage to sell this one to Darrell Royal, former University of Texas football coach and friend of, Willie Nelson. When the IRS learned that Royal had bought the property for safekeeping to return to Willie after his tax debt was paid off, the government canceled the sale to Royal and refunded his money. When the club went back up for auction, they eventually did find a buyer in an investors group. At this time, the recording studio was auctioned off separately, and it was bought by Freddie Fletcher, Willie Nelson's nephew. You do see where this is going, right? Well, apparently the IRS saw where it was going to, and eventually they decided to stop fighting it. A collection of Willie's gold and platinum records, instruments, posters, and other personal items were sold to the Willie Nelson and Friends Showcase for the low price of $7,000. IRS, seeing the writing on the wall, they were never going to get the money by trying to sell off Willie's property, at least not if his fans and the fine folks of Texas had anything to say about it. They went back to negotiating a table with Willie and with his representatives. Willie, for his part, remained surprisingly upbeat. At one point, he even parked his bus outside of the IRS offices in Austin, and during breaks in their meetings, he would go out and sign autographs for fans, and that includes the IRS employees themselves. Finally, in '93, Willie and the IRS settled their dispute for a little over half of what the government initially claimed that he owed, with Willie agreeing to pay $9 million, $3 million of it, which has already been paid. One of the results of the negotiations, of course, was the infamous IRS tapes. The IRS tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories, double album featuring acoustic recordings of both new and unreleased songs, was released in '92 to help pay off some of his debt, and the IRS agreed to help promote the album to help Willie raise the money. He also went on TV to promote the album, but there was one small problem. The t-shirt that he wore with the phone number to order the album had a non-existent phone number on it. Eventually, Willie would also enter into an agreement with Sony to distribute the record to stores, and through a profit-sharing agreement that included the IRS, the album would help Willie raise almost $4 million to go towards his tax bill. Oh, and he made a Taco Bell commercial to help him raise some cash, too. Willie also filed a lawsuit against his accounting firm that set up his tax shelters. Price Waterhouse, and eventually settled for an undisclosed amount of money to be paid to the IRS towards his tax bill. Reflecting on his battle with the IRS, Willie didn't seem too bothered at all. According to Rolling Stone, mentally, it was a breeze. They didn't bother me. They didn't come out and confiscate anything other than that first day. They didn't show up at every gig and demand money. I appreciated that, and we teamed up and put out a record. He wasn't even too upset that his belongings were auctioned off, calling them just things, nothing that can't be replaced. You're not too worried about things when you know you have an army of adoring fans who are there to buy your things and get them back to you, because like the IRS learned, you don't mess with Willie Nelson. With friends like that, you're not going to have too many enemies. It's just the way it is. God bless him. And God bless the way he handled it. He handled it with class. That's all I have for you. Please, please, please subscribe if you have not yet, and please share them out. I'll keep this short and sweet. We are leaving tomorrow for Kentucky. It's going to take a while to get there. We'll get there on the 28th. It's a long trip, so you probably won't be hearing from me for at least a couple of days. So please go back and watch some of the older ones, videos while I'm gone, if you don't mind. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So until then, have a great day. God bless. Please pray for us, and I'll be praying for you.